Like all continents, Africa has had its share of brutal dictators. In the future, we plan to look at the worst dictators of every continent, except Australia and Antarctica, of course. But for now, we've put together a list of the 5 worst African dictators. Number 5 is Masias Nguema, who was the president of Equatorial Guinea. The son of a witch doctor, Nguema was most infamous for stalking his mistress' former lovers and ordering the death of all intellectuals in Equatorial Guinea. During his reign, Masias did not even bother to come up with any development plans or to hire any bureaucrats to keep records of government funds. Instead, Masias Nguema reigned from his ancestral village of Monogomo and kept the entire country's national treasury underneath his bed. By the end of his reign, a third of Equatorial Guinea's population had fled his extermination campaigns, which often would wipe out entire families and villages. Eventually, though, karma caught up with this fledgling dictator, and he was sentenced to death by his own nephew, who now rules Equatorial Guinea to this day. Number 4 is Robert Mugabe, who is the president of Zimbabwe. Depending on who you ask, Robert Mugabe is either a sterling example of an African leader who has stood strong against the West, or a brutal thug who also happens to be in control of Zimbabwe. But what cannot be denied is that Robert Mugabe has never been afraid to say exactly what he thinks. He has been quoted as saying, quote, "The only white man you can trust is a dead white man," end quote, and has also referred to gays and lesbians as worse than dogs and pigs. During his reign, Zimbabwe saw 60% unemployment, rampant inflation which at one point reached over 1 billion%, and the elimination of all forms of political opposition. Mugabe's strangest act as president of Zimbabwe was his inexplicable decision to enact Operation Drive Out the Rubbish, where Zimbabwean authorities used bulldozers to level entire slums of his own citizens' homes, causing 700,000 poor Zimbabweans to go homeless. He has also been widely criticized by the West for confiscating farmland from white farmers and his lavish spending while the population of Zimbabwe continues to live on the edge of poverty. Despite Mugabe's old age, he is still the leader of Zimbabwe as of this video's release. Number 3 is Omar al-Bashir, the president of Sudan. After seizing power during a military coup, President al-Bashir then set about eliminating all political parties in Sudan. To accomplish this, he disbanded the country's parliament and shut down all privately owned media outlets. Famously corrupt, al-Bashir embezzled over $9 million worth of Sudan's public treasury into his own private bank accounts. His iron grip on power, however, was not met without opposition, as a civil war broke out shortly after he began his presidency. The Sudanese civil war eventually caused over 1 million people to be killed, another several million to be displaced, and the division of Sudan. President al-Bashir is currently wanted by the International Criminal Court on charges of instigating crimes against humanity. Number 2 is Mobutu Sese Seko, who was the president of Zaire. Thanks to his opposition to communism, Mobutu Sese Seko of Zaire enjoyed U.S. support while reigning as one of Africa's most corrupt dictators. During his time in power, he created an oppressive authoritarian regime, amassed an impressive personal fortune of untold billions from stolen public funds, and enjoyed an incredibly lavish lifestyle. Instead of attempting to lead Zaire into the modern age, Mobutu spent most of his energy amassing a personal fortune of billions of dollars. He owned a fleet of Mercedes-Benz limos that he used to travel between his numerous palaces, while the nation's roads rotted away and many of his people starved to death. To top that off, he would often take shopping trips to Paris on the supersonic Concorde jet, which was paid for with public funds. During his reign, infrastructure in Zaire virtually collapsed, and many public service workers went months without even being paid. Mobutu's obsession with not paying his own government employees created a popular saying in Zaire that went, "The civil servants of Zaire pretend to work, while the state pretends to pay them." Only Mobutu's bodyguard regiment, known as the Special Presidential Division of Zaire, which Mobutu relied on for his physical safety, was paid regularly. After frequent and unapologetic displays of corruption, he was overthrown in 1997 after an impressive 32 years of dictatorship. And number 1 is Idi Amin. Known best by his full list of titles, which include His Excellency, President for Life, Field Marshal Dr. Idi Amin Dada, owner of the Victoria Cross, lord of all the beasts of the earth and fishes of the seas, and conqueror of the British Empire in Africa in general and Uganda in particular, Idi Amin's time as an African dictator was just as much eccentric as it was destructive. Amin is known for numerous human rights abuses, political repression, ethnic persecution, corruption, and gross economic mismanagement. Today, it is estimated his regime killed 500,000 people in Uganda. Due to his extremely erratic behavior, historians have speculated that he suffered from an undiagnosed case of bipolar disorder. This diagnosis seems somewhat plausible once you learn that Idi Amin allegedly would eat the hearts of his political enemies and would appear charming, happy, and charismatic one minute and then suddenly angry and violent the next, with little or no warning. Idi Amin's reign of terror over Uganda finally met its end when he abruptly invaded the neighboring country of Tanzania. After his military was annihilated at the hands of the Tanzanian forces, he was driven out of power. Idi Amin would then spend the rest of his life in exile and eventually die in 2003. For more top lists just like this, be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And if you want to keep up with our latest videos, hit that bell icon on mobile. Or if you're on desktop, hit the gear icon and check Send Me All Notifications. It really helps us out. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you all next time.